Hi there, my name is Sarah Caudell and this is my webinar, How to Get Out of Your Weight Loss Rut. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited for what we're gonna go over today because I think it's really gonna help you out if you find yourself in a weight loss rut currently. So a little bit on our itinerary where I'm gonna take you through this talk. The two big points that I'm gonna go over are first, the two things that every diet has to have in order to be effective. If the diet misses one of these two things, then there's no point wasting your time on it. The second point that I'm going to go over is the only three things that you need to look at every day to make sure you are moving towards your goals, you're moving towards success. Or I guess a better way of putting it is you're actually succeeding. So those are the things that we're going to go over. But first, a little backstory on me. I started my first diet when I was 10 years old, the tender age of 10 years old. And that started a whole lifetime of roller coaster dieting, disordered eating. Along the process, I have tried every single diet you can imagine. So I've counted calories, I've did Weight Watchers, I did intuitive eating, I've done paleo, I was militant about clean eating. I even did a keto-esque diet. So I've done all of those things. You can imagine that, I guess a way of looking at it is that I tested all of those out for you. So maybe you've done some of those as well. Maybe you're still doing them, but I can tell you from my experience with those diets, not working, and what I do now, I'm hoping to give you a clear path. So who is this webinar for? This webinar is for you if you are currently throwing up your hands in despair and you're like, I just don't know what else to do. I've tried everything under the sun and I just cannot get my body to do what I want it to do. This diet is for you if you know you can't do this on your own. If you finally hit a point where you need help. This webinar is also for you if you are ready to do work. So if you're looking for a quick fix, I'm sorry to tell you, might as well just stop watching now because this is not it. That said, it works. It's just not gonna be an overnight thing, if you know what I mean. So who this webinar is not for would be the opposite of all those things. So if you already know how to achieve your goals, I can't really tell you anything that you don't already know. If you can do it all on your own, if you're like, I can do this tomorrow if I want, then go do it tomorrow and, hit me up later if you ever need help. Or again, if you're wanting to lose weight overnight, then this webinar is not gonna be for you. So my promise to you is I am going to give you clear action steps to take so that when you get off of this call, you can start moving towards your goals immediately. Now, of course, I'm also sharing this information because if you get to the end of this webinar and you decide you still need some help, I would love to work with you. I'd love to guide you through it. But for the sake of just this webinar, I'm gonna show you the things that I wish somebody when I was 10 years old had sat me down and told me this. It would have saved me a lot of headache. So we're not gonna get to the end of this and me say, oh, if you want the information you want, do the next thing. You will be able to leave this call with actionable steps to take. Why have I put this together for you? That's the question. If you've got the secret to weight loss, Sarah, why have you put this together? It's because I have gone through a lot of pain, and we'll touch on a little bit of it during this webinar, but I've gone through a lot of pain in my life, and I don't want a single soul. I would not wish the struggle that I've dealt with, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, and so I'm wanting to get the word out to help anybody who will listen, to be able to save them from such a horrible path. I also put this together because I believe that for many people, weight is such an obstacle, it's such a struggle, and it can become an obsession to the point that it prevents us from doing great things that we're meant to do with our life. I know in my case that I have spent many years frustrated over weight, and as a result, there are probably things that I didn't achieve in my life because I was focused on this one thing. So I would like to empower you and anybody you know who would like to watch this to take charge of their life, get their success, achieve their weight loss goals so they can live their life. So, who am I? I guess the better way of asking that question is, why should you listen to me? Well, as I've already alluded, I've done all the things that you shouldn't do. So that's one. Two is I'm a coach. I'm a teacher. I've taught and coached. I've taught high school. I've coached athletes. I've coached adult fitness enthusiasts. I'm a coach. I keep saying that because that's just how I identify myself. I'm a coach. I coach people. I help people. Secondly, I'm a student of the body. So I'm a yoga teacher, and I consider myself a movement coach. So anything involved in moving the body better and being in our own skin better, that is what I am about. And of course, weight is a big component to that. And then finally, I am a success story. So I wouldn't have tried all those horrible diets if I didn't have my own struggle that I was dealing with. And I tried those, found a way out, and now I want to share it with you. So let's talk about the biggest problem. When I started my journey, let's not say when I started at 10 years old, just the greatest problem I dealt with as an adult, we'll say. As an adult, trying to lose weight. My biggest problem is that I wanted to feel good in my body. I wanted to feel confident whether I was naked, wearing clothes, sitting around, exercising. I wanted to feel good just being in my own skin. And I didn't want to starve myself. And what I would say is my biggest problem is that I viewed those two things as mutually exclusive entities. I thought that I either could look good in my body, but would have to be really hungry, or I could feel satisfied as far as hunger goes, but then I would always be overweight. So having those two binaries, as that's how I approached my fitness world, meant that I did a lot of this, going back and forth, roller coastering back and forth, because given the day, depending on the day, it might be, I might feel in that day, you know what, I will starve, I don't care, I want to look good. And then the pendulum would swing the other way, and I would suddenly decide, you know what, this isn't worth it. A girl's got to eat. And so because of that, swinging back and forth, what that turned into was a whole lot of nothing. No forward momentum, no success, and just constantly being gridlocked in an uncomfortable body, and a body that I was not proud of, that I was really quite ashamed of. And so this problem translated into a whole lot of pain for me. And see if you can relate to some of these things. So the self-consciousness, down to the very marrow of my bones, and it would strike at any point. So I might be having a great day. I walk into a room full of people, whether I know them or don't know them, and for no reason whatsoever, it would just hit. It would hit me as an emotion first, because that's, I think in feels, and so that's what would happen, is it would hit in my body, I would feel it, and then the voice would kind of needle its way into my head after, you're not enough. You are not enough because you're fat, is what that voice would tell me. And so I would go from feeling great to just boom, nosedive in the blink of an eye, and then all of a sudden I'm looking around everywhere, just comparing myself to everybody around me. It didn't matter if you were a woman or a man. I was, how are they so fit? I look so fat compared to them. It would strike when I was trying on clothes. Oh, you guys, trying on clothes for me was a nightmare because of all of this self-consciousness and shame. When I would go try on clothes, if they didn't fit, it felt like my body didn't fit the clothes. Little secret side note, it should be the reverse of that. Just so you know, if you're not experiencing that, it should be the reverse of that. Those clothes, it's all about you, but that's another webinar. So anyways, I would feel self-conscious even in environments where they were meant to be empowering to me. So even though I've struggled with my weight all my life, I've been an athlete all my life. And so sports to me was always very empowering. However, if you're in the middle of say a cardio kickboxing class, and you get on the floor and you're doing crunches, and then all of a sudden your shirt gathers into the rolls in your stomach, that's what would happen to me. And then in that instant, nosedive. And then immediately I'd go from feeling strong and empowered to feeling self-conscious and worthless. And then of course you can imagine how this would affect my relationships. So even with my husband, trying to be intimate with him, if you're trying to be intimate with somebody, but the whole time you're thinking about yourself, and not in a good way, not in a confident way, but in a, oh my gosh, I look fat naked, then you can't really be present with your partner in that space. And so it negatively affects you and it negatively affects them. So what I craved and what I am going to show you, and I'm so excited to show you this, is clear action and clear results. Clear action that will create clear results in your life. I craved the end of hunger forever. So if you've probably experienced this. If you haven't, you're so lucky, but that point where you're starving, you're so hungry that suddenly you become angry and then all bets are off, you're hangry and everybody needs to get out of the way. I wanted to end that forever, and that's what I'm gonna show you how to do. You do not have to be hangry. It doesn't have to be a way of being in your life. I also craved, and what I'm gonna show you is the path to becoming centered, to becoming whole, to knowing that you already are whole, but to feel that way, centered in your body and good in your own skin. So that's where we're going. I'm so excited I get so excited when I share this because for reasons that I've already mentioned, because life can be rough if you don't have these answers. So what turned my life around though? Where was the point at which Sarah went from all of these crazy diet experiments to, oh, here's the answer. It was great. So it all revolves around the point at which my husband Forrest was getting ready to start the program that I am now sharing with you. And I heard all about the program. I knew what it entailed. And I actually knew that if I did the program, I would get results. Like, I was convinced of it. However, I was also attached to this thing called intuitive eating that I've been attached to for the large majority of my life. And basically, intuitive eating is eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. That's all it is. And I'll tell you, it got me results in so much that it kept me from my weight skyrocketing upward, but it didn't help me get to any kind of a weight that I actually wanted to live at. So it stopped the upward momentum, but I couldn't control it, if that makes sense. And so what the cycle would, this is what I would do in a week and a day. Intuitive eating is based on the understanding that to lose weight, you have to burn more calories than you take in. So it's calories in versus calories out. However, it's a very, we'll say, flowy approach. It's based on the idea that your body will generally know what it needs. And that's a good idea, that's a good philosophy, and I still use points of it in my path, I'll say. But as far as weight loss goals, what it turned into is, because I didn't have any control of it, I began to slip and slide into disordered eating. So because I just knew, okay, I need to eat less the night spell. So I would try to eat less. And what that would look like is I would wake up in the morning, revved up, fired up to be skinnier today than I was yesterday. And so I would eat just a little bit of food, just a little bit, just enough to not be hungry-ish. And then of course, 30 minutes later, maybe even 10 minutes later, I was hungry again. And so I would do that throughout the day. I would eat a little bit and I would power through to lunch, eat just a tiny bit and power through. And then I would get to the evening and I would eat just a tiny bit. But at that point, my body had taken over and it was starved, it was hungry. And so I would eat these little tiny bits all through dinner and it would turn into me basically grazing into the night. And then the next day I would wake up and my pants wouldn't be any looser. I wouldn't actually know how I was doing. And then I would start that cycle all over again. And every morning or every night, whenever it hit me that I wasn't getting results, I would say the thing in my head, okay, I just need to eat less tomorrow. I just need to eat less. That was my mantra all through this period of time. And so I was listening to Forrest talk about this program he was getting ready to do. There was a part of me that knew like, okay, if I do that, I'm going to get results. This is huge. But there was also a part of me that was stubbornly connected to this, enamored with this philosophy of eating. And so I told Forrest I would think about it. And I'll never forget, I was walking down the hallway and there came that refrain, I'll just eat less. I'll just eat less tomorrow. But then in that moment, this still small voice, and this is how it always, I don't know if this is the same for you, but for me, it seems like the most booming, earth-shattering epiphanies to me usually come in a still small voice. This still small voice said, less than what? You're planning on eating less tomorrow, but less than what? And it had a really good point. And its point was, I had absolutely no idea how much food I was taking in. I was taking in a little. I had people that would tell me, oh, Sarah, you eat like a bird, but they didn't see me grazing when they weren't around. And I had no idea how much I was eating. And so in that moment, I did a U-turn. I said, oh, no, I see now. I see the awful cycle that I have been in my whole life, and I'm ready to turn the ship around. And the next day I started the program, and I now live in a body that I'm happy with, I feel confident in, and I'm proud of. So on that note, let's talk about the two things that every diet needs in order for it to be effective. Number one, that diet absolutely has to be sustainable. It has to be something that you can do today, tomorrow, over the holidays, in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years, and on. It has to be something you can keep up. So, intuitive eating, for example, fit that bill. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. I could do that forever. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience, right? Not difficult at all. However, number two that all diets have to have in order to be effective, they have to get results. They have to get results. So the results I wanted after about 15 years of trying intuitive eating with variations of paleo and, I tried Weight Watchers. Well, that one I didn't sustain, but it got me results. All of these diets, any diet that you've tried or maybe that you're on right now, I invite you to put that up against this two-pronged test. Can you sustain it for long term, and are you getting results on it? So in my case with intuitive eating, my pride was keeping me from owning the fact that I was not getting results. For other people, if you're doing keto is a pretty common thing right now. It's pretty intense. If you're actually doing it, it is a very intense diet. I don't know that it's going to be something you can do forever. I just don't know that. Maybe you can, but I don't know. That's my thought about it. So, sustainability, results. Those are the two things every diet needs. So let's talk about now the next point, the 3 things that I do, the only 3 things that you need to look at every day to make sure that you are not only moving towards your goals, but, well, I mean, that's it, that you're moving towards your goals and that you're actually making headway, that you're making progress. The 3 things rather. So I lovingly call this my triangle of triumph, just because they're 3 things. So I know it's not that witty, but what can I say? So the first thing, number 1, I look at my weight every single day. When I say I look at my weight, what I do is I weigh myself every single day. Now this is a massive shift from me 5, 10, 15 years ago. And the reason I say that is there was a point, you can imagine someone who does the whole intuitive eating thing and wants to be, free to do what she wants and feel her hunger, feel her fullness, all that stuff. I did not want to weigh myself every day. To me, weighing myself, especially, and the clean eating thing, that was really big in my militant clean eating days. If I weighed myself, this is what I was convinced, it would make me neurotic no matter what. And I will tell you, it did make me neurotic the way I was weighing myself before. And here's what it would look like. I would weigh myself randomly at any point in the day. I would have all my clothes on. Maybe I'd eat lunch and then go weigh myself. And then the next day I might weigh myself in the evening. I might not weigh myself again for another week. Maybe I would get really upset and not weigh myself for another week. And then I would weigh myself randomly again. And then at one point when I finally decided, okay, I'm getting rid of scales in my house, I don't want to weigh myself at all, then I would weigh myself just a little bit differently. And when I weighed myself without a scale, what that turned into is pulling out my jeans when the seasons had changed, going to put them on and hoping against hope that they still fit. And if they didn't fit, well, I weighed heavy, didn't I? And if they did fit, then I weighed light that day. So it just became this sort of less clear system of weighing myself. So that was the old way of weighing myself. And you can imagine throughout all of that, the general message that I received from weighing myself was this number on this scale equals my self-worth, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's not one dang thing I can do about this weight. And so it did make me neurotic. However, now, here's how I weigh myself. Every single morning when I wake up, I go to the bathroom. So I don't drink anything, I don't eat anything, I get out of bed, I go to the bathroom, I use the bathroom, I take off all of my clothes, and I weigh myself. And then I write it down on a spreadsheet. And then I carry on with my day. What that does is it ensures, one, that I have taken out as many variables as I possibly can. Now keep in mind, your body's gonna naturally fluctuate in weight. However, I've been sleeping for 8 hours or however many hours, so I haven't been eating anything. I'm dehydrated because I haven't been drinking anything. So at least I've narrowed down those variables, right? Here is why this is so powerful now. So one, I get a clear, steady way of tracking myself. It's clear, it's much clearer than using my jeans. Now I know exactly how I'm doing. And then because I do that in relation to the other 2 things, I should have just told you what those 2 things are. So it's weight, and then I'm also tracking my calories and my steps. So the weight now has nothing to do with my self-worth. It has everything to do with those other 2 metrics that I'm tracking. And because of that, it means I can actually control the number. The number doesn't control me. I just feel spacious, like space in my chest, just saying that. I control the number now. It's tied to my behavior. It doesn't control me. It has nothing to do with my self-worth. That feels good. All right, so weight is number 1. Number 2 is calories. Now, if you're anything like me, tracking or counting calories might be a bad word. Like, psh, you kiss your mother with that mouth kind of bad word, right? here is my experience. Here's why it was so just, no, we do not track calories. This right here is the reason I even had that epiphany, was because when I told you I knew that if I did this program, I would get success. I just didn't know if I wanted to count calories because I had such a bad experience with it in the past. Here was my experience of tracking calories in the past. Tell me if you can empathize with this. So at the tender age of 10 years old, I've already mentioned, I went on my first diet. And this is what it looked like. I went to my mom, my poor, sweet mother, who also had weight issues. And I said, Mom, I'm fat. What do I do? And my mom said, well, honey, the only thing I ever could get to work was to go on a 900 calorie per day diet. I don't hold that against my mom. She was doing the best she could with what she had. However, what that meant for me is I had to take a notebook, and it meant a lot of things. I was about to spell this out for you, but I'll sum it up. I don't need to go on and on and on. This was in the 90s, before there were apps on your phone. So I had to count calories. I had to find out where the calories were. I had to keep calculating. So anytime I was about to eat, I had to get out my notebook and figure all this stuff out. It didn't just populate on my iPhone like it does now. And then in addition to that, it was too little. It was just an arbitrary 900 calories. It had nothing to do with my caloric needs. It had nothing to do with what I needed to not only be living, but also growing taller, because I was only 10. And in addition to that, when you're 10 years old and you go to the lunch table to eat lunch, you don't want to be the only person that can't take part with everybody else. I had this horrible experience. It was the first day I decided to do this diet. One of my friends at my lunch table was like, hey, does anyone want my nutty bar? You know, those little Debbie Snack nutty bars? I've shared this story before, so if you've heard it, forgive me. 10-year-old Sarah was like, oh, me. And she gave it to me. And as soon as that chocolatey peanut butter goodness touched my palms, that voice at the back of my head said, you're on a diet. And I had to unclutch my fingers and give it away to somebody else. That was my experience with counting calories. And you can imagine, I never wanted to do it again. Let me tell you, though, it doesn't have to be that way. There are things like MyFitnessPal, first of all. So an app on your phone that makes it so much easier. And then as far as the psychological part of it, because I'm counting calories in relation to my weight and my steps and my activity, again, it's not just this random number that I'm trying to achieve. It means that I have numbers that make sense for me. I'm eating a caloric need that makes sense for me. And what that actually translates into, this like intuitive eating nut gets so excited about this. It actually means that I am eating more consistently than I ever was before tracking my calories. So rather than going on this yo-yo, sometimes I'm starving, sometimes I'm stuffed, it's this nice energy throughout the day that I'm getting. It's more gentle on my system. And in addition to that, when I want to eat something like a nutty bar, I get to eat it because I just need to fit it in with my numbers. What? Guys, this is life-changing, absolutely life-changing. So this gives me more rhythm to my food. It also takes away hunger, means I can eat a real meal, and it also just means eating is fun. It means eating is fun, and I think that's super, super important. All right, so we've got weight, we've got steps, weight, calories, steps is the final piece to this puzzle. And before, I've already mentioned that I've been an athlete all of my life. And so to me, activity was never a problem. However, it was always slightly tainted. And the reason it was tainted was because I had issues with body image and I didn't know how to achieve any kind of success in my body. And so as a result, even though I loved working out, I also used it as a punishment. So if I ate too much, Sarah was gonna be out on the track punishing herself the next day. If I thought I overdid it, oh, I better get 2 workouts in instead of 1. And so it really, training for me before this program was unfortunately based in fear that I was going to get fat. However, when I started this program and I started tracking my steps daily, I discovered that there was a clear relationship between the more steps I got in a day, whether that was from training or walking around the lake, it didn't matter where the activity came from. The more steps I got in the day, the more my weight trended down. Imagine that. And I can see it clearly on the spreadsheet that I use. And so as a result, I discovered that activity itself is more important than training. Not to say you shouldn't train. I do train religiously, but now I train because I love it. I'll go to a kickboxing class or a martial art class because I want to sweat and I want to get out all that frenetic energy and I want to have fun moving my body. I want to feel my body, both its power and its rhythm. I want to feel all those things. And then on days when I rest, I want to go take a walk in the woods with my husband or a friend. I want to enjoy myself. And maybe I go rock climbing, or somebody invites me to a Zumba class or a hip hop class. It makes life so much fun. Because at the heart of it, friends, what I've discovered and what I'm hoping, what I'm inviting you to consider is that fitness should be for wellness, not weight loss. And that it's a therapy, not a penalty. Again, more space as I'm saying that. I feel so good. It feels so good to share this. I hope you do these things, by the way. So just to recap, the 3 things that I track every single day: weight, calories, and steps. And what I did to get out of my rut is I tracked those things on a spreadsheet for 2 weeks straight, and I didn't worry about trying to hit any target. That first 2 weeks was all about me being like a scientist, and Sarah, I was my own science experiment. I was just tracking data to see, I wonder how many calories Sarah eats in a day and in a week to be at the size she's at now. That actually became fascinating for me. I wonder how much her weight actually adjusts and changes during a week. And I wonder how much activity she's doing from day to day. And so when you have these numbers after at least a week, 2 weeks at best, then you can start to make small changes based on you. So let's say you discover that you're eating 2,000 calories a day to be in the body that you're in, but you want to be smaller. You could start out by just cutting out 50 calories a day. So you don't have to jump down to 900. You could just eat 1950, still feel good, not hangry, and see what your weight does. So that is that, friends. That is my triangle of triumph. That is what I do every day. And just to give you an idea of how successful this is, I've been doing this all through I started it before the pandemic, of course, but through this pandemic, through stress, through fear, through all of these things, I didn't backtrack on my goals, on my success. I kept moving towards them. And I'm better now that I feel better now in my body than I did at the beginning of the pandemic as a result. And so, as I said, these are things you can do right now. If you would like access to the spreadsheet that I use, I invite you to join our private Facebook group. It will be on there. And as I said, that might be all you need. So you'll get the spreadsheet from us. You'll also be in a group with other people that have gone down this path, so you can get that support, some interesting perspectives. You can ask questions there. But if you're at this place and you know, or you're pretty sure you'd like to have help along your journey, I would love to provide that for you. So please, if that is you, definitely comment below or reach out to me. Let me know. We can get on a short 15-minute call where we can chat about the program, chat about your goals. and see if you're a good fit and if this would work for you. So thank you so much for being in this space with me, sharing your attention with me. I hope this has been valuable to you. I will see you either in the comments online or hopefully we'll talk soon. Take care.